If everyone got rich tomorrow, life would not suddenly become cheap. In some parts of life, it would just become a bigger bidding war. That is the part people tend to miss. When people imagine a world where everyone has more money, they usually imagine relief, less stress, more breathing room, better access, a smoother life. And to be fair, more money does solve a lot of real problems. An extra $500 a month can change a household's stress level in a very real way. What it does not do is automatically create more houses in the best areas, more daycare slots, more specialist appointments, or more front row seats. So if more people can pay more at the same time, some of the things people most associate with feeling rich do not become easy. They become harder to win. In this video, we're going to make a clean distinction between having more money and having more access, so you can see why some things stay expensive no matter how much cash is floating around. Because this is not really a video about whether prosperity is good or bad. It is a video about what money can solve, what it cannot, and why a richer crowd does not automatically create a less scarce world. The fantasy here is easy to understand. If people are struggling because they do not have enough money, then giving everyone more money sounds like the obvious fix. And at one level, that logic is right. More money absolutely helps with ordinary pain. It makes groceries easier, bills less stressful, and repairs less disruptive. It gives people margin, buys time, and reduces fragility. So this is not one of those arguments where we pretend money does not matter. It matters a lot. But there is a threshold where the logic changes. In some parts of life, the problem is not only that people lack money, the problem is that too many people want the same limited thing. And once you cross into that category, more money does not remove the scarcity. It changes how the scarcity gets rationed, sometimes through higher prices, sometimes through wait lists, sometimes through location, timing, speed, or better connections. But the bottleneck stays. That is the core mistake inside the everyone would be rich thought experiment. It assumes that money and wealth are basically the same thing. They are not. Money is purchasing power. Wealth in practice is broader than that. It is not just having numbers in an account. It is having reliable access to what matters in a world that still has limits. And some of the things that make people feel rich are expensive for a very simple reason. They do not scale well. Think about what people usually mean when they picture a rich life. They picture a beautiful home in a desirable area, convenient childcare, fast access to skilled professionals, premium experiences with less hassle, and the ability to skip friction and choose quality. Now ask the uncomfortable question. If everyone suddenly had much more money, would those things multiply fast enough for everyone? Usually, no. You do not get 3 times more waterfront property because household balances went up. You do not get twice as many trusted daycare providers just because parents can pay more. You do not get unlimited seats at a sold-out event because demand feels justified. If a city has 10,000 households competing for 2,000 highly desirable homes, giving those households more money does not turn 2,000 into 6,000. It just changes how hard people can bid. The supply side of reality is slower than the fantasy side of money, and that is why some things would still be expensive. Not because people are irrational and not because prosperity is bad, but because scarcity survives money. It helps to split this into a few categories. First, there is scarce space. Good land, good neighborhoods, and homes near jobs, schools, safety, or status are limited by geography and time. You can build more housing, yes, but you cannot mass produce the exact same location. Second, there is scarce human time. A great surgeon still has only so many hours. A trusted therapist still has only so many appointments. A strong daycare center still has staff limits, licensing limits, and room limits. Third, there is scarce access. Some experiences, services, and goods are limited by design. There are only so many seats, so many memberships, so many places in a program, and so many slots before the line closes. And fourth, there is prestige demand. Some things become more desirable, partly because not everyone can have them at once. As more people can afford them, the crowd around them grows, and the price or friction rises with it. That is the hidden cost people miss. A world with more money can still produce the same painful competition around bottlenecked parts of life. Sometimes it produces even more of it. Take housing. There are real cases where a home listed at $670,000 ended up drawing an offer of $714,900. That is $44,900 over asking. In another case, a buyer talked about needing to go $55,000 over asking just to win. Now, that does not mean housing is always irrational. It means that when multiple buyers can stretch at the same time, the limited homes people actually want do not become easier to buy. They become auction-like. And notice what is really happening there. The house did not become more valuable because the drywall changed overnight. The competition changed. More ability to pay meant limited supply in a specific place. If 5 serious buyers can each stretch their budget by even $30,000, that is not a small change. It can be the entire difference between a calm sale and a bidding war. That is the pattern. If more people had much more money, the nicest locations would not suddenly become cheap. The bidding pressure would just move upward. Now look at childcare. One family was dealing with daycare costing $2,400 per month. They were even offered a prepay option of $25,000 to save $1,500. Another household described paying $2,785 per month for childcare for 2 kids, even after a discount. That is not a luxury fantasy. That is ordinary adult life colliding with limited capacity. Because childcare is not just a money issue, it is a staffing issue, a trust issue, a licensing issue, a location issue, and a time issue. Parents are not only buying hours, they are competing for safe, reliable, convenient care, and that makes the trade-off easy to feel. A family that can absorb an extra $400 a month may look stronger on paper, but if the center only has one open slot, money still does not solve the real bottleneck. So in a richer society, does that category automatically become cheap? Not unless the actual capacity expands in a meaningful way. Otherwise, parents simply arrive with stronger budgets and hit the same narrow doorway. Now take limited seat experiences. One person gets a ticket in pre-sale for around $135. Another person, trying later, sees similar access trading closer to $1,400. Someone else looking for a better seat ends up staring at prices around $3,000 with fees. Again, the point is not that concerts are unfair. The point is that fixed seat counts do not care how many people feel ready to pay. If more people can afford the same event, the event does not magically become abundant. The premium just moves. In that kind of market, the hidden cost is not just the ticket price. It is the extra $1,000 or $2,000 someone pays simply to overcome limited access at the wrong moment. Price becomes one sorting mechanism. And even when price does not do all the sorting, something else does. Time, queue position, connections, platform luck, geography. That is why it is so important to separate money from access. Money matters, but it is not the whole machine. And this is where the idea gets more useful because not everything behaves like this. Some things really can get cheaper, better, and more widely available as prosperity grows. Mass-produced technology is a good example. A product that can be scaled efficiently often improves while getting cheaper over time. That is real. So this is not a claim that more money never helps or that a richer society gains nothing. The point is narrower than that. The expensive parts of life that are tied to scarcity, capacity, location, and premium human time do not follow the same logic as scalable goods. That is the threshold. Once the thing people want is bottlenecked, more money does not dissolve the bottleneck. It intensifies competition around it. So when people ask, if everyone were rich, what would still be expensive? The best answer is not just luxury stuff. It is this: anything limited enough that extra purchasing power cannot quickly create more of it. Prime real estate, trusted care, elite time, fast access, convenient access, status-rich experiences, and all the invisible forms of relief that come from not having to compete too hard for them. Here's the practical takeaway. When you think about wealth, stop thinking only in terms of money totals. Ask a better question. Is this category of life scalable, or is it bottlenecked? If it scales well, broader prosperity can make it cheaper, better, and more accessible. If it is bottlenecked, then more money mostly changes the competition. That is a much better way to think about prices. It is also a much better way to think about your own life. Because sometimes people chase a bigger income expecting it to make every part of life feel open. But some forms of stress are not solved by crossing one salary line. They are solved by understanding where the bottlenecks are and building your life around them more intelligently. Maybe that means buying time instead of status. Maybe it means avoiding fragile housing math. Maybe it means valuing flexibility more than prestige. Maybe it means recognizing that some expensive things are not expensive because you are failing. They are expensive because too many people are reaching for something structurally limited. That distinction matters. It makes your financial thinking cleaner, and it makes it less personal. So if everyone were rich, what would still be expensive? The things that do not multiply just because demand gets stronger. The things with real bottlenecks. The things people cannot all have at once. That is the deeper point. A richer world is not the same thing as a frictionless world. More money can reduce a lot of pain, but money alone does not erase scarcity. And once you see that, you start thinking about wealth more clearly, not just as bigger numbers, but as access, capacity, and room inside a world that still has limits. That is what makes this thought experiment useful. It stops being a fantasy about cash and becomes a better way to understand what money can do, what it cannot do, and why some parts of life stay expensive no matter how rich the crowd becomes. If you want more videos like this, subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.